everybody. Welcome to Pale in Comparison, a proud member of the Doof Network. In this podcast, my sister uses her knowledge of the Otherverse to take a look at Pact, Wildbow's least appreciated work, and I try to not give away any spoilers. I'm Jenny, and Malia convinced me to read Worm.
I'm Malia, and Jenny convinced me to read everything else. This episode, we are covering Collateral, chapters 4.1 and 4.2. Before we get into that, however, I'd like to issue a spoiler warning. This podcast is filled with pale spoilers. If you don't know who made the Hungry Choir and don't want us to tell you, stop now, read Pale, and come back to this podcast. As for Pact, there will be full spoilers through the chapters we are covering. Hey Jenny, before we start, are you doing okay? You look kind of down.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I don't know. I feel like my life is kind of bland. There's not a lot of color or interesting things going on. I honestly feel like I need some more culture in my life.
Well, speaking of culture, there's an art contest going on that you should really know about. Pale Complexions.
Pale complexion. Do you mean the one that's based on siblings in the Otherverse, where you can win a monetary prize?
That's the one! If you want to submit something, submissions are due this Friday, July 30th.
But Malia, you know me. I'm not artistic at all. I can barely finger paint.
Well, in that case, you can become one of Doof Media's patrons, and then you can vote on a winner. You like judging people, right?
Yeah, I love judging people. That's so much fun. Just, people of Walmart. Like, have you heard of that website? That's like all about what I do. I'm going to totally look into that. Thanks a lot, Malia.
No problem.
All right. So now that we're done with that totally spontaneous and legitimate conversation, we can get to our podcast.
Anything I can do to help you out.
All right. Okay, so we are starting a new arc. Yay!
Woo!
So, our arc title basically is Collateral. So, Malia, we're going to get into what does collateral mean?
This is also a very legal term, which was real fun. The first thing I thought of was collateral damage, which is like often used in war or other situations. It's where someone gets hurt or something is damaged that wasn't the intended target, right? So this is often in the case of like civilians who are hurt in exercises where like civilians weren't intended to be targeted. And so it was like, oh, well, that's ominous. And like, someone else is going to get hurt that wasn't intended as the target. And I'm not sure if it's like Blake will cause collateral damage or the fucking Lord of Toronto will cause collateral damage or Jeremy Meath will cause collateral damage. There's a lot of potential opportunities for people getting hurt, it seems like, in this arc. Collateral is also the word that you use for like debts or loans, right? Like if you are trying to get a loan, you could put something down as collateral as kind of a, okay, if I can't pay you back, you can have this thing. It's when like people take out a like mortgage or whatever on their house. That's usually like they're using their house as like, or like again, you know what I'm saying? Like they're using their house as collateral kind of to get like a big loan. Not the first time, but like you can like do that again.
Okay.
And I think maybe that has something to do with the lawyers or the Lord of Toronto or something. Like maybe they're going to have to put down some collateral to get out of this. I actually Googled collateral this time and I learned some other things. Apparently it also means additional but subordinate or secondary. I guess the idea behind that is like the person would rather have all their money back, but they'll take your house as a secondary thing or something. It also reminded me of Rose. Lol. Bummer.
Bummer.
And then similarly, descended from the same stock but by a different line is another definition of collateral, and that really reminds me of Rose too. Rose and Blake are descended from the same stock, but she's an alternate Blake, and so I'm not sure if this is going to be a super Rose heavy arc or if those things are fun coincidences, but I'm excited.
All right, well, we will be eagerly looking into that. as we keep reading on. So we start off our chapter summary. Blake makes his way back to Toronto and has an immediate get together with old friends. Doesn't even take any time to rest, really. He gets an invite from the Lord of Toronto to meet up. Blake and Rose go to Conquest's domain. At first, it seems like Blake's making a good impression, but his true identity is discovered and he seems to be trapped. Uh-oh. So we'll start at the beginning here. Blake is driven to Toronto, basically by one of the newer lawyers of the firm, and asks some questions.
Yeah, so I was wrong. There wasn't really a time skip. I mean, there was a time skip of maybe an hour
Yeah.
or two.
I mean, I guess we didn't see him get in the car
right.
and all that, So
I was right.
Technically, we're right.
But this is exciting. I feel somewhat at a loss. Like, I feel like we're like careening out into like unknown territory, whereas I was expecting us to stay basically in the house the whole book. And so this is kind of exciting, but I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, what's happening? And of course, Blake gets absolutely no time to rest. He goes from, he barely sleeps in the car, and then he doesn't rest, and then he shows up with Lord of Toronto, and then he's not going to get to rest much more after that, it seems. So that sucks. I'm just, these chapters just really threw me, and I haven't fully processed them.
It's all right. We'll talk through it, and that'll help you process them. We'll process them together, Malia.
Okay. Thank you. I really appreciated that, like, they know the brand of his shaving cream, because, like, he has been living in someone else's house, and he's been talking a lot about how he hasn't been able to use, like, it's like, oh, I'm using someone else's soap and shampoo. And so, like, I feel like that was a nice touch in terms of, like, helping rejuvenate his self. Also really creepy, because, like, why do they know that? But, like, from a writing perspective, it's also a really nice detail of, like, because, like, okay, yeah, they know your pants and your whatever. They, like, like, they know your sizes. Like, some people can kind of guesstimate that. That's not that extreme. But, like, the brand of shaving cream is just, like, it's a fun detail that really stood out, and I really liked it.
Yeah. Kind of, like, what kind of weird ritual stuff do they have to do to figure that out? And why would that,
Well, I'm still on the, like, there is another in Blake's life somewhere who, I mean, I feel like I don't even know what type of shaving cream I use. So, like, I guess my friends don't, like, I feel like I'm not really wedded to I don't even use shaving cream. Mostly I use conditioner.
We already have our discussion question, guys. If this happened, what kind of shaving cream would they get for you?
Or just, like, what is the thing that is very specific to you that brings you a lot of comfort, but would also really fucking freak you out if someone knew it? I actually like that as a discussion question.
I do too. Let's remember that. Okay. And if we don't remember the exact wording, well, you're listening to this podcast, so jot it down, guys.
Take notes.
That's going to be the one. Where it's like, I don't know. For me, for a lot of things, it's kind of what's on sale. So I don't know if I'd necessarily notice in terms of, like, being comfort or whatever. I'd be like, oh, these guys are cheap just like me.
Well, because for me, well, no, they could probably figure this out. I have, like, really particular contact lenses that require a plunger to take out. It's, like, really a lot. But I feel like that would be more obvious. I don't know. So maybe, like, if there was, like, a particular tea brand, like, I really like Twinings.
Hyperallergenic pillows or something.
Oh my! If they could figure out what it was in pillows that I was allergic to, I would be so grateful. I would read that book. I would go on that thing. I would do so many things.
Spend, like, a stupid amount of money.
Yeah, that and how to identify the pillows that I'm allergic to. Those two things, I would just be like, yeah.
Would that be part of your site? Like, if you could choose? It's like,
oh my god. I would train my site to see things that I'm allergic to. That would be absolutely fucking life-changing.
Yeah, that would be kind of awesome.
Like, my neck and back and things have started to hurt more when I'm sleeping, and I don't know if it's, like, stress or if I'm sleeping weird, but I bought a new pillow that's, like, it mimics down. I don't even know if I'm allergic to, like, feathers and shit, because I've never, like, bought a fancy enough down pillow, and then I started being like allergic to random crap. And so this is some like weird memory foam shit that's supposed to like mimic whatever. And I was all excited and I slept on it one night. And then the next morning, it wasn't like horrible, but like I had a rash on my face. I have like contact dermatitis. And I'm just like so bitter.
I bought some random pillows. You could try one of those.
That's
I think they're hypoallergenic.
That's what they all say.
That's what they all say. I know.
It's because for most people, hypoallergenic pillows mean pillows that like don't keep dust mites and shit in them, or like they have like a protection or something against that. But I'm allergic to like
the actual material,
something else. Yep. We don't know. Nobody knows.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
It sucks.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's not an allergy that'll cause me to die. It's just an allergy that'll cause me to be very uncomfortable.
Yeah. I mean, it still sucks.
Yeah.
But I'm glad it's not an anaphylactic reaction for pillows. Because holy fuck.
Like, I would be dead.
Yeah. You'd straight up like have to be in a bubble. Just like, you'd probably just have to like wear like clothes that are made out of plastic or something terrible. So,
well, I feel like my clothes are normally fine. It's pillows and fake black leather and fake red leather.
Maybe you should just get like a pillow. Maybe I could just make you a pillow that's like just stuffed with fabric, like normal fabric that I know you're not allergic to. Just feel like, here you go. It's probably not the most comfortable thing in the world, but you never know. I mean,
but I forgot my pillow when we went to your wedding, and I slept on my jacket stuffed with clothes for like 4 days because I didn't want my face to break out for your wedding, and it actually was fine.
Okay, well that's good. All right.
Everyone's like, literally, can you stop talking about Malia's allergies?
It's our podcast. We do what we want. But okay. Next topic, I guess. So they're in the car and talking, basically. That's where we're at.
Yeah. Rose is getting the books, and I'm like, cool, Rose, go get those books. But then it's also like, oh fuck, are they ever gonna go back to Blake's apartment? I think they will. But
Blake's apartment or the house? Or
Blake is like, don't bring too many books in case we can never come back here, because she can get into and out of the house, but everywhere else she relies on Blake's physical presence to be there. Mm-hmm. And if she takes a whole bunch of books from the house and leaves them in Blake's apartment, and then Blake never goes back to his apartment because he's the Lord of Toronto's bitch, they can never get those books back.
That is rough. But at least the Lord of Toronto can't get the books, right?
Well, I'm like, are they? I mean, yes, because they're still physically present in the house, I think. And I mean, Rose has a connection to the books, maybe, so maybe he can just pull them into his little world as well. I don't know. But yeah, I also mentioned this later, but I think, like, where does Rose's voice come from? Because Rose says something when she shows up with her books in the car, and Blake turns to his right, and then he's like, oh yeah, and looks in the rearview mirror to see her. And I'm like, did you turn to your right because you heard her as though she was sitting next to you? Because that's bananas. I don't know if your face means like, Malia, this literally isn't important, or like, Malia, this is the key that unlocks this entire story.
You know what? I'm gonna be honest. My face is like this because that song literally popped into my head. It's like, this shit is bananas. Bananas. And I was trying really hard to just like not say anything.
To write it out.
And then, but now I just said it, so it's too late.
Whoa.
You're like, is she thinking some like big conspiracy or anything? No, literally just that song popped into my head. Yeah.
I love it. But yeah, my first read through of this chapter, I was like, what the fuck's happening? And then my second read through of this chapter was like really like negative and bummed out. Like, I can only imagine like how Blake feels, because like this lawyer dude seems fine. Like, I wasn't like, wow, he's so great, but he's fine. And he, you know, is like, oh, Blake, you're cool. And Blake's like, okay. And Rose is just like, oh, like, they sent this guy to lure you in. Like, they sent like, this was all a setup to whatever. And I just like, I don't know, it's such a bummer because like he says almost verbatim what Ms. Lewis says about like, oh, I like you, our other clients are shit and you're really cool. And like I really liked Ms. Lewis, and I feel like this interaction and Rose's reflection on it kind of tarnished that a bit. And like maybe Miss Lewis is being genuine, she really does like Blake better, but it also is manipulation. Like it is like, hey, it's not so bad here, we're fine. And like I just feel like everyone and everything in Blake's life is like, or like everything involved with the practice is all about using everyone. And we've kind of established that a lot. And it is a big comparison with like Blake's people and how just like lovely and wonderful they are and like giving. And obviously like they're using each other for companionship and shit. But like they really care about each other. I'm just like, now I'm like, oh fuck, like his friends are gonna get ripped away from him. And I thought it was just because like he was gonna be in his house and never see anyone again. But like I'm worried that there will be some sort of like betrayals or something with these friends. And I'm kind of freaked out and really sad.
Well, I mean, if he's stuck at Conquest's place, he can't get betrayed by his friends, right?
He won't be there forever, and
hopefully that could. Would you be bummed out if the rest of the story took place at Conquest's domain?
Yep. He has to go back to Jacob's Belt, but also just like the Conquest isn't that interesting. He's very like flat because he's the incarnation of a thing,
just like his eyes.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm worried about him and his friends, and I wonder, how did they tell the Lord of Toronto that there was a new practitioner in town without being like, oh, and also he's a diabolist? Like, were they? Because they're like the diabolist lawyers, right? Like everyone knows that. Was it an anonymous tip? Like it feels like, how do you call someone and you're like, oh hey, this guy who's totally whatever is in town, lol, he has nothing to do with demons, it's fine. Like I'm just kind of like, how did that work? Because it does seem like the Lord, like I feel like if he had an inkling, they would have been like, demon boy. I don't know. Okay. I think it's also interesting that he's like, hopefully Joel hasn't evicted me. And I'm like, bro, it has been 1 week. Like, why would he have evicted you?
Well, I don't think he realized it had only been a week, right? So
that's true. He does later seem to be like, it's only been a week. But I don't know. I feel like Joel is concerned about rent, and Blake really seems to think like, oh, Joel will keep me around as long as I keep paying rent or whatever. But I also think that like Joel helped him get this apartment, and Joel went into his apartment and cleaned it and took the perishable food out of his fridge. Like I feel like Joel is not going to be like, oh, you didn't pay rent, bye, Blake, you know? Joel was like, Blake's back, let's all have a party in his apartment.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was nice seeing him, even though I hope we never see him again. Oh, Joel. Okay, so this like lawyer dude is talking to him, and he's like, oh, I wouldn't worry too much about trouble. But like the moment it's like, oh, maybe this boy knows something about demons, Lord like Conquest is just like, holy shit, like you are now mine, I now own you. Like how did this not fucking occur to anyone? / maybe it totally occurred to them and they were like, heh heh heh, now he'll have to ask us for help again. Heh heh heh. Because like, yeah, maybe this dude wouldn't worry too much about trouble, but that doesn't mean he shouldn't worry too much about trouble.
Yeah.
And like the token gift, he's like, I think he says something like, oh yeah, it's probably a token gift, or like, you know, he wasn't like, you definitely don't need to worry about shit. I was also wondering about he was like, sprinkle water around your apartment, and I was trying to think of what that would protect him from. Like that felt very like holy water, whatever to me, but he didn't say holy water. And like I don't know that would help against like fairies. I mean, I guess like maybe that's just sort of like a general ward,
just like a thing.
that just like the practice of it makes it like, oh yeah, this is now kind of a protection thing. But it reminded me of like Easter and like when the priest comes around and just like douses people with water.
It's true.
And that reminded me of like demons.
That's nice.
Yeah.
But I guess like holy water, getting rid of the demons. Do you think that tape was the best choice? Or
I think that tape was fine. I mean, like paint would be better. It's stronger, but that is rude. I was worried about how his friend finished the tape stuff for him. Hopefully his friend finished it. We don't even actually know if that happened. But I was like, don't you have to draw it? Or maybe you don't have to draw it. But is the universe listening to Tyler taping things? Maybe it is enough. I don't know. And the triangles, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I'm excited about the whole like, here you go. Next time we do something for you, you know, you're gonna here's I think maybe it's like a location, a name, and a 2-day duration. Because it said a duration, a name, and a 2-day duration, which didn't make as much sense. But I feel like it's like, okay, go here, deal with this for 2 days. And I'm just like, is he gonna babysit a demon? Like, what's gonna happen? Like, this is kind of exciting. He's definitely gonna do it. And I wonder also if this is like the standard progression of payments. Or like are these personalized? Is it like, all right, the first time you do something, like they just have like stacks and stacks and stacks of this book that was published within the past 6 months or whatever, just ready to hand out to incoming Diabolus. Like here you go. And then like, oh yes, then you do this task. Then you do this. Like it makes me kind of laugh thinking about it as very like standardized and routinized like payment schedule for everyone. The fact that Grandma Rose knew the author of the Black Lamb's Blood or whatever it's called and was like friends with her, that makes me like so happy. I find it really interesting and kind of badass that a lot of the prolific Diabolist authors are women.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
I mean, I guess it's only really Grandma and this lady, but still.
So, Blake gets to his apartment. He attempts to set up a barrier, and then as he mentioned earlier, his landlord comes over to check on him, and they quickly arrange to get together with his old friends.
Yay! This was so nice. I really, even though I was like, oh no, you are all in danger now, I was like, it's really nice to meet them and see this. And just like how much this was restoring like Blake and his self and his everything was just like really nice. I really liked many of them. And I have a favorite, but first I'm gonna talk about how Blake keeps fucking lying. Blake is like, I could eat a live horse right now. I was like, Blake, that's so unnecessary. Like why are you saying literally why did you just say that?
Well, I guess he doesn't say the entirety of a live horse.
Yeah, and he doesn't say like I will or I want to, but also what?
Yeah, no, I mean it's not great.
Yeah. It also reminds me of the Hungry Choir, which is a lot.
That's probably one of the animals. Like,
oh, definitely. I bet it's
stallion or something, and then
yeah,
you'll have to catch the damn stallion and eat it.
I hate everything. Oh, but then I got really excited about June Cleaver. Do you know who that is, Jenny?
It rings a bell, but I don't remember. Wait. June Cleaver. She is the principal character in sitcom Leave It to Beaver.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
It's Beaver's mom. And I didn't even notice till the second time I read it. And I mean, Blake's obviously making a joke, but like also her name is June and this is a hatchet. I was like, this is so fucking good.
That's funny. Yeah, I've never seen Leave It to Beaver. But that is a good reference. So
Yeah.
kudos.
Yeah. And also, like, more evidence that he has to come back to this apartment is that they left Leonard in a bottle. Which reminded me of, like, I feel like he was on some weird sitcom thing, because it reminded me of, like, I Dream of Jeannie for some reason.
Genie in a bottle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Christina Aguilera, less likely that they're referencing Christina Aguilera. But
well, he is the right age.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, Malia, are you gonna keep singing random shit that like throughout these podcasts?
Probably.
I mean, to be fair, I guess I did bring up the bananas thing, but like,
you also brought up Christina Aguilera.
I did. True. I'm like, damn it! If you're gonna sing, like, commit. Don't just be like. That wasn't even a tune of something. It was just me like humming nonsensically. But commit, damn it.
Okay,
Just,
I'll think about it.
Just belt it out,
I keep thinking that my roommate's here and she's in California, but I keep being a little self-conscious and thinking like, oh, I don't want to disturb her. And then I'm like, no, I can be loud.
You can be loud. Woo!
Yeah, sorry everyone for your ears. But yeah, I wonder if like this boost of Blake's self will like weaken Rose. It still seems like there is that balancing act of like whenever Blake's feeling good, Rose feels like shit, and like vice versa, because she's kind of like feeding off of him or connected to him or whatever. And it just like it makes me. It didn't necessarily seem like that. She didn't seem like super exhausted or whatever when he started to feel better. But I don't know. He was like, oh, like, we're going to get you out of there and you can like come meet my friends. And I was just like, oh, like, like you could be like, oh yeah, this is my cousin or some shit. Like, I don't know. I mean, like, that would be so nice.
Long lost relative.
Yeah. I need that. She needs that.
Yeah.
But yeah. Ask me who my favorite character, or at least my favorite one of Blake's friends is.
I mean, you wrote on the notes, but I'm going to pretend I didn't see that. So, who's your favorite one of Blake's friends, Malia?
Goosh. I love her. She's just like perfect in every way. I also picture her as like Megan Rapinoe. Just like tall, blonde woman, short hair, like strong, like queer vibes. I wonder what her performance is exactly. Like, does she do like a one woman stage show? Is she like a dancer or a singer or what is she? I don't think that's mentioned, but she is totally looking out for Blake and like this whole thing, which is really great. She's like, I'll run interference. She like stops Amanda from like running up and hugging him. She just like is very like super considerate and super caring. But she's also not like but she gives him space, and she does other things. She talks to other people, but she just like seems like incredibly solid as a human, and I love her.
She does seem pretty great.
Yeah. I mean, she and Alexis and Joel are the ones that really stand out, because Tyler like is like, oh yeah, I'll do the tape, and then Joseph, who I literally only remember because of the whole Carpenter thing, is like, oh, cupcakes. And so I don't know. I really like Goosh, and I'm really worried about her. I'm worried about them all. I thought the like, they hate me for no reason comment was also probably another lie, because like,
there's probably reasons.
I mean, there's a reason. It might not be like fair, but like, oh, your family consorts with demons. That's a reason. Like,
yeah. Like, I know. He's got to work on that shit, man.
Yeah. And I also don't know that I would. I mean, like, maybe Laird hates him by now, but I kind of feel like Laird didn't even hate him until he started.
Yeah.
It
wasn't personal. It just was like,
yeah, which like is super gross to be like, oh yeah, I'll just kill these people. But it, yeah. Like, I don't see, like, Penny doesn't hate Blake. I don't think Sandra Duchamp, I don't think they care enough to hate Blake.
Yeah.
And also there's a reason. So he needs to stop. And also every time he was like, I'm not drinking, like, I'm not having a beer tonight, like, blah, blah, blah. I was like, you're going to have a fucking beer tonight. And like, so far he hasn't, but I just keep being like, Blake, like, stop saying shit. Say like, I don't want to drink tonight. Or like, no, thank you. Or like, just like things like, that aren't definitive statements about what will happen in the future. Yeah.
Yeah.
Start saying the word plan a lot. Start saying the word want a lot.
Yeah. Stop fucking yourself over, bro.
Constantly. I'm shocked he has like any pigment in his skin at all left. Right. Like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about Alexis. I think it's really interesting seeing Blake's type. I think it's interesting that he's like into her, and he's like, oh, I like figuring like staring at her face and noticing all the like unattractive things about it and wondering like why I still find her attractive or whatever. Just kind of interesting. Like, she does definitely have like a manic pixie dream girl vibe. Which was very in during this time period. And I feel like it does really match Blake. He seems to resonate more with like outcasts and people who have like been through a lot of shit and aren't necessarily like beloved by society and have like all this privilege and crap. I find the whole like, hey, all of us are fucked up, so let's all have sex together, to be like,
what the fuck?
I feel like it's like a questionable decision. Like, I feel like, especially like, oh, my friend thinks you're super cute and already kind of has a crush on you, and you have feelings for me, and like all of us have like issues with like physical touch and like emotional commitment and just like all, like all these things, and let's have sex together just like doesn't seem healthy.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of like there's a lot of things like polyamory that I don't really understand, and like maybe there is a situation wherein this could be fine. I just feel like the people involved are like, I don't think using sex to heal yourself works, at least not in my experience.
It's a good way to make possibly a supportive, relationship a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
And a lot more awkward. There's a lot of ways that can go wrong. I feel like at least from, I don't really know that much about polyamory either, but I feel like you at least have to have really fucking good communication, and you should ideally be somewhat in a healthy mindset. And you should make sure that you're on the same fucking page with everybody. Whereas like, he just got back from like having his mind and body like fucked with completely. Just met this other girl who thinks he's cute. I mean, this clearly to me at least is like a terrible idea. So like, there's no way that this is gonna end without like hurt feelings and like people just feeling fucked and awkward and creating distance when like he needs a support group, and you don't really want to be creating that weirdness,
Yeah. I almost think maybe Alexis was like, oh, if it's a threesome, this will, like, if it's just like, oh, Blake, let's have sex, like that would be a lot of like in a way that's a lot more intimate, possibly. Like, that's a lot more like if I was thinking of like Verona and Jeremy, and if Verona was like, hey, like you, me, and some other guy, let's all take our clothes off and stare at each other or whatever, like maybe Jeremy would be like, oh, this isn't really about me, like she's not into me, like she trusts me enough to be doing these things, but like there's a whole other person here. And I'm wondering if that's part of the thought, is like, oh, like with Tiffany there, it's not Blake and Alexis are hooking up and like this thing shared between just the two of them. It's like, oh, and Tiffany's here, lol. Like, I don't know. I also feel like there's a chance
just to clarify, were you trying to paint the Verona and Jeremy thing as that possibly being like a positive take on that?
No, what?
Or like, because you said it'd be like Verona and Jeremy, and he'd be like, oh, he realizes that she isn't into me as much. I'm curious if your take on that is more of a positive thing.
No, I think it's like I was trying to think of like the ways that Verona has communicated to Jeremy, like, I don't want a relationship. But then when they like make out or whatever they do, Jeremy interprets that as like, oh, we're dating.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of curious as to like, if someone else was there and they all made out together, would Jeremy realize, not like, oh, this is what she should do. This is not what she should do. But I'm trying to say that like maybe Jeremy would realize like, oh, okay, you're making the face. This is not what anyone should be doing. I'm just trying to say that I think maybe Alexis thinks that Tiffany's presence there would be a signal to Blake that, hey, Blake, this isn't like I want to be romantically involved with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if there was another whole fucking person with Jeremy and Verona when they made out, Jeremy might think to himself, oh, Verona doesn't want to be romantically involved with me. Again, this is not what anyone should be doing in this scenario.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could see how the person coming up with that plan would think that. Uh-huh. But holy fuck, that would... Okay, terrible fucking idea. Mm-hmm. Talk about fucking playing games with somebody's head, you know, like whether intentionally or not. Like that would fuck with Jeremy's head so fucking bad, because like
totally, like
even if he's like, oh yeah, like I want her to think I'm cool with this stuff, you know, because I still like her. Sure, we can do that. It's fine. We're not in a relationship. Like he's gonna say that shit out loud. Well, potentially, if he actually were to be like, that's cool. But like, if actually doing it, he's gonna have his heart like fucking smashed into smithereens, like seeing her hook up with another dude and like pay attention to another dude, and like maybe logically be like, oh yeah, she said like she's not into me, and but like emotionally, you know, still been like hooking up, kissing, all this stuff, and then you bring another dude into it and you're doing the exact same thing. Like that's just like, I mean, I could see how it wouldn't be intentional, but that's pretty fucking shitty.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah. So if Alexis, that might be totally be what her thought process is, but I feel like there's quite a lack of empathy there, to not realize that, like, especially someone who's had a crush on you, even if she didn't realize it, like, that's pretty, like, in my opinion, fucked.
Right. Well, no, she knew it, right? Like she said, oh, you used to have feelings for me, and then he was like, well, I still have feelings for you, and she was like, well, okay. And I also can see that Tiffany would sort of be like, could be really easily pressured into that situation and just kind of agree without it being based on like Alexis has brought her into this world. She thinks Blake is really cute. It's kind of like, oh, okay, well, mm-hmm. I've never had a good relationship with literally anyone, so maybe this is a way to make good relationships with people. Yeah, again, not saying that any of that is good or makes sense, but I could see how maybe Alexis was like,
could see where her thought process maybe was coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely flawed, but fair enough.
Yeah.
See what you're saying.
Yeah. This was one of the things about these chapters that very much threw me off, because I was just like, well, oh my god, and then I didn't even talk about this. So first, when it's like, because every single fucking person who walks in, I'm like, Blake, turn on your goddamn sight, because one of these is the other that Grandma Rose implanted into your life. Like, I was just like, okay, you're gonna fucking find it. And then, or it was like, you know, like, or something, and he's like, oh, there's this girl, and she has this weird connection to me, and I've never seen her before. And I was like, ah, and then it was just like, oh, like, your friend's trying to have a threesome with you and her. Like, it just was like, what is it?
Like, that's weird as fuck.
I just didn't expect any of this. It was a very good, like, like Walbo really tricked me and had me thinking like, oh fuck, and then like it wasn't at all, and that was funny. And then it made when the practitioner had like snuck into the room and Rose couldn't quite like see him or whatever, that was really freaky. And built up that tension a lot more because it was like, oh fuck, this definitely is something. Like before it was like weird, but this is like, oh fuck, it happened. Like you weren't here to protect your friends.
No.
But then he was just like, hey bro.
Yeah.
Even though the guy's a dick, but it's fine.
Yeah, but at least like I didn't come in and start like, you know, fucking shit up right there.
Right.
Which, speaking of which, a messenger from Conquest arrives and asks Blake to accompany him to go to their domain.
Woo!
Woo!
Good job, Rose. You found the guy. The painting thing threw me off at first. I was like, wait, what? And then I was like, oh, she's good at painting. She's an artist. It's the gift. When he was like, I need a painting, lol. I think it's funny that he's like the practitioner with no name. I'm like, Blake, did you ask for his name? Like, same with the lawyer. I'm like, Blake, did you ask for the lawyer's name? Like, I feel like Blake is just like, oh, like these people have no names. And like, they don't have to be like, hi, who are you? Because they all know who you are. And you're just like not asking any of these fucking people for their names. Which is funny. But yeah, I'm glad they let him bring June inside. That's sweet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was cool. What do you think of like the whole like booby trapped like Conquest place?
I wasn't really sure. I thought that the trophies or whatever were really fucking creepy.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, I hate this. It seemed to me like the place had, it's like there had been, it had survived a lot of battles or something, that like I imagined a lot of like people had died trying to take over this place. And maybe it's like not actually physically that place or whatever, but just like Conquest has gone and taken over shit. I don't know. And like it sort of falling apart was interesting, and the fact that it like isn't even his domain was really interesting. I don't know if others can have domains, but yeah, and the whole like, no, whatever you leave behind is lost past that threshold. I was like, what the fuck does that mean? Because like he's like, oh, but once I come out again, I have it all, right? And it's like, yep. And it's like, okay, literally, what does that matter? Like, the moment I leave the threshold of my apartment, I can't access any of that shit until I go back into my apartment. Like, it just like doesn't seem like a useful, you know. The other thing that I noticed was like, oh, we're in the fallow season within this place, and I was like, is that because it's like, is he losing power, or is it just because like it happens to be winter, or like what's up with that? Was sort of interesting. Also, my cat has crawled up onto my desk and is rubbing her face against my microphone, and she's never done this where we're recording before, and I don't really get what's happening. What's happening, Bubba? Look, that's Jenny.
Hi.
Yeah, so if there's a lot of bumps, I'm sorry, that's my cat.
All right, well, next part, Blake ends up meeting with Conquest and the other local powers. He seems to make a decent first impression.
I wonder why he has a mullet, or like sort of a mullet.
Are you telling me that the mullet doesn't just like scream Conquest?
It doesn't not scream Conquest?
It screams redneck to me. Which
that's
I guess
fair.
I'm gonna Google Conquest redneck and see what comes up. And the first thing that came up was Conquest Scents at Instagram. And they sell premium hunting scents to hunters around the country.
Nice.
So there you go. That's, I mean, if that doesn't scream mullet, I don't know what else would.
Yeah. I was thinking, like, he's like behind the times? You know?
Definitely is behind the times. But
yeah, but is the mullet a representation of that?
I mean, I would consider the mullet to be the most modern part of his look.
That's true. Speaking of the whole, like, 2 Aboriginal men were kneeling beside him, like, fucking yikes. Like, I don't know, I kind of appreciate that it's like, the people who came here and did this were awful. But they also, like, don't speak and aren't, like, mentioned again, which sucks. Like, I don't know.
I mean, conquest is not really a touchy-feely, nice type of thing, you know?
Correct.
Like, generally that's like aggressive shitbaggy type of thing, which
Yeah.
seems pretty on point, I'd say.
Yeah, that's fair. I didn't understand what the large green beetles in his hand were. I was also like, wow, this is really extra. How long have you been sitting like this waiting for Blake to show in, like holding these fucking beetles in your hand? I tried to Google like very quickly some like tarot cards to see if this was a thing in any of them, and I didn't notice anything. I don't have a comprehensive knowledge of tarot, as everyone knows, but I was just like, what the fuck is happening?
I don't know. They could be fig eater beetles or green June beetles. I don't know. I just Googled large green beetles. So,
I think the Sphinx is really scary. I liked her, but she was freaky, and I would have answered every fucking one of her questions. Like Blake was like going along doing stuff, and she was like, "Oh, do you understand? Do you not understand, or whatever?" And in my mind, I was just like, "Yeah" or "No." Like I felt myself answering all of her questions. So I'd be dead.
oh, for sure, me too. But then again, like we haven't had to be hyper vigilant.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. But I mean, I don't know. It's just like after he realizes it, he's like, okay, I got it. No answering questions from that one. And I don't know, I'm proud of him. I wonder what it is about Blake that makes people like him so much, because, I mean, maybe it's not people, maybe it's just women, maybe he's just hot. But like the Sphinx likes him, and like Diana likes him. And because Diana was really like helping him out and stuff.
yeah.
With the whole like, just don't do this and she won't eat you.
That was nice.
That was nice. I don't remember if she's the one who says like the blonde one, but also black, or if it was the Sphinx. I don't remember who said that, but that was interesting. I never thought to look up Blake's name, but he is blonde, and he does have two people living inside of him, sort of. So that was kind of cool. I was really excited about all the other people, like the important people in Toronto or whatever that they list off. And I was like, that sounds fun. I want to know who those people are. But if they were all there, that would have been like too many people to keep track of. So
yeah, that would have been a lot.
Yeah. So it's like, I'm wondering if we'll meet them all. I'm not really sure. Wildbow does do well with a large number of characters, but I just kind of feel like, oh, we have to get out of Toronto like soon. I'm just not sure, like, will he just go back to Jacob's Bell, or what will he do? But Conquest is a dick. And they really are just like fucking questioning Blake kind of hardcore. He's like, why should I value this thing? I'm like, fuck off. Like
it's a fucking gift. You're not supposed to be questioning that, you dickhead. But I mean, he is a lord.
Why should I value this thing? But yeah, he's like, why should I value this thing? And it's just like, I don't know, like, fuck you. And also just like, it was like perfect that it was art, kind of, because art is so hard to value and interesting and weird. Because like that painting isn't like practically useful for much, but art is great and brings a lot to people into society and whatever. But there's just, yeah. I liked his explanation. I thought it was really like beautiful and really sad, of like, you know, she's lost a piece of herself forever, kind of. Like she will never have this back. It seems like something Conquest would enjoy, but it was also just like, ugh, like, fuck Conquest. Yeah. I was also like, I wonder what else these people have been doing all day. Like, did they convene just to meet this new practitioner? And what's their role? Just to be like, yeah, you can hang out in Toronto. Like, what if they had said no? Like, would they have just murdered him, or would they have been like, hey, leave? Or like, what would have happened?
I don't know. Sphinx probably would have tried to eat him just because she's hungry.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, it just feels like no one explained to Blake what was going on, which is a normal thing.
Yeah, pretty normal for him, unfortunately.
Yeah, and then this last bit with like this bit with Jeremy, where it's like, oh, Jeremy's like, yeah, you'd be fun to have at a party, and then Blake gets triggered by like the smell of like booze and pot and stuff. I'm wondering, like, that feels like something we're gonna learn more about, possibly. I'm not sure if it's just a like, oh yeah, I was on the street and like drunk people would like beat me up or whatever. But it felt like important.
So, Jeremy the drunk sows seeds of suspicion, which causes the others to look more deeply into who Blake really is.
I liked the tarot thing coming back. I thought it was funny that he remembered this. I also thought it was like interesting that worked somehow and didn't get him eaten. I wonder, like, if that worked, couldn't a whole bunch of things worked? Like if you just said Blake, would you just fucking eaten him? I don't understand. And then Jeremy was like, he's the lowest power and the highest in Dexter's hemisphere. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? I tried to Google it. I couldn't figure this out. I know that Dexter is like right in Latin. And maybe like the fool is the highest power? Right? Because he's the fool with the right and the high priestess with the left. But the high priestess isn't the lowest power if like that would be the magician. I just don't get it. If someone can point me to like some sort of resource as to like, is this actually a thing and what does it mean in terms of tarot? Because I wasn't sure. I mean, it makes Blake seem like kind of a big deal, which is fun, but I don't know. The other thing, I thought it was interesting how they were like picking apart who he could be, where he's from, with like, they were like, oh, where is there a circle and a coven around here? Oh, where is there blah, 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 blah. It was like, oh, these people are like pretty plugged into like the things that are going on around them. Like they know the actual names of the families in some fucking town off yonder. But they also like know about the whole Goblins Festival of Blood. And I was like, hey, fuck you. Like they all knew about it and like no one tried to do anything except for that one practitioner. And like, that's really shitty. It just felt bad.
Yeah.
Also, I guess Maggie is Canadian and whatever.
She is Canadian.
This wasn't in Ireland. Yeah. Okay.
So they find out he's Blake Thorburn. Conquest decides to do some conquering and conquer Blake. Or at least tells him he's going to. Things look pretty bad.
Yeah. It was kind of funny how Conquest was like, well, if you'll happily take a steps away from that road, you will have to unhappily take a push down that road. But it was, I was like, I just was like, oh, they're gonna find out he's like a diabolist or whatever, and they're gonna be like, ew, evil, and like kill him. And Conquest was like, haha, a diabolist.
Use you.
Yeah, and like that's gross as fuck. That like Conquest was like, this is fine. I want some demons. Also, the I can conquer you was real a lot.
Yeah.
And Blake was like, I fell into a trap. Oh no. And I'm kind of like, I don't think you had. I don't know
how you could have prevented that.
Yeah, like I feel like falling into a trap implies there were things you could have done to prevent this. And maybe you could have like never left Hillsglade House. Like I'm just like, what could you have done to actually prevent this? I think that's the only thing that would have actually worked, you know? Like I guess maybe if Jeremy Meath hadn't pushed it, everyone would have just been like, oh, whatever. But they were already curious. They were already thinking about the circle and the coven. I don't know.
Might have prolonged it at least, but might have found it out eventually. But I mean, Blake has really crap karma, so it's not that surprising, unfortunately, that this happened. But
and then on the other hand, he has good enough karma to not just be like immediately struck dead because he consorts with demons or whatever.
Yeah.
But Conquest doesn't seem like he cares about the fate of the world.
Yeah, no, he definitely does not. But I mean, even the Forsworn aren't immediately struck down dead by lightning. And that's about as low as you can get karmic wise.
That's true.
So
might be nice for them if they were.
Yeah, that's probably why they're not. Like, that'd be too nice.
Jeez. Yeah. And then I got really excited about Rose being
Pulled
here
into existence.
Yeah. I'm wondering, like, is this temporary? Like, is this just a thing that will exist while they're in the Lord's place? I also wonder if she, like, knows what's been going on, or if she wasn't able to see anything. I'm not sure if he had mirrors or whatever on him. And I just think that's sort of funny.
Yeah.
Poor Rose.
Poor fucking Rose. Do you think that her sight or practice is going to be any different or better since being pulled into?
I do think that it will be. Well, and again, I don't know if, like, this is just a thing that she's in the domain of this guy, or in this guy, whatever, and then she'll go back or something, because the whole, like, line about whatever you leave is lost forever, or whatever the fuck. I feel, though, that, like, a lot of what has been said about Rose and her power is that, like, there's no spirits on her side, and so I think, like, they can finally, like, hear her now, and that she will be able to actually do shit, which is exciting.
Yay! That's exciting.
I hope that doesn't super fuck Blake over, but we'll see.
We'll see. All right, so, I guess what do you think is going to be happening next after this? Is it kind of
bold and specific prediction time?
Maybe. It depends if you're. I'm getting a little bit confused because I feel like sometimes last time we switched it around to my comparison time. But
right.
We can do. I'm just here, man. You know.
No, this is a conversation.
No. Okay. Well, let's talk about the comparison part, because I still think that should go first.
Okay.
Because I said it. That's what I feel like in my heart. So I feel like the best thing to compare for these chapters, it'd probably be like comparing like Conquest and I guess like the local powers to the judges in Pale. So I guess do any of them kind of align with each other at all as far as you can tell, or like we haven't seen the Carmine like in action because like obviously, you know. But who does Conqueror remind you of anybody, or like?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like Conqueror has Sable vibes. I think one of the biggest differences here, I mean, like, is that the Lord of Toronto has control and power, right? He's in charge. And something about the Sable gives me the most like in charge vibes, but like technically they're all like I think they're all supposed to be like the same level of like influence, power, or something.
Okay.
Whereas like this is the Lord of Toronto, he's in charge. And I was surprised that it was like, oh, and here's this council thing. But that makes a lot of sense because like we've talked about how Conquest was getting weaker, and that's why like Sandra married Jeremy, because they were like, oh, maybe you'll get to take over or whatever. And it makes sense that he would need to like balance and deal with all these other like powerful forces in the area, and so he'd have them together. So it was kind of like, oh, you know, you're meeting a group of people and having to be like, oh, hi, you're really powerful. But in this scenario, it is like Conquest is the big head honcho. But yeah, he and Sable are both like masculine, both very no nonsense, both very like harsh and unforgiving. It seems like Conquest is more into, and you know, he's obviously more into like advancing his own position and stuff. Whereas the Sable seems more just kind of like, this is quote unquote fair, and I am super fucking powerful, and like I don't know that. I wonder if one of the judges can become a lord. Or if that would like erase their
like their role or
power or whatever. Yeah. Because it seems like the judges don't have anywhere to go up, and they're fulfilling this role that is very like universe, karmic balance, whatever. Whereas Conquest as a lord is like, I have to fucking remain in charge. I have to do me. I have to like keep going with this.
So, do you think if there was an issue with some of the like a practitioner or with like somebody being murdered or whatever in Toronto, how fair do you think Conquest would be?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I feel like it would be much less like, this is what the universe demands of the situation, and much more like political, much more like whatever Conquest needed to do to both possibly satisfy his nature, but mostly like feeding his own conquest and like dealing with the powers in the area or like other powers that might threaten him, right? So like he might be more or less fair depending on, you know, maybe the Sphinx has a lot of influence and really cares about this one thing and whatever, which feels a lot more like corrupt, personal, and political, as opposed to like, this is just the system and I'm just a piece of it. Yeah. And I think that the persona of the Sable and etc. really does influence their decisions. Mm-hmm. But like judges, right, are supposed to be upholding the system of law. And they're supposed to be just saying like, all right, this is what the law says. This is what's going on. And we all know that like the individuals who are judges really, really can fucking influence the shit out of things.
Yeah.
But like the Supreme Court justices of the United States, right, like don't have anywhere up to go.
Yeah, that's true.
Unless they like change tacks and decide to like try to run for president or whatever, you know, like they can like shift and do a different thing, whereas like the president would be much more like consolidating his own power, forming a coalition, trying to like make whatever happen. More like a lord, I guess. I wonder how much the judges would like accept a lord coming into power versus like really try to fight it. I bet in like 2 weeks or whenever this podcast comes out, everyone's going to be like, well, we know because blah, blah, blah. In the last chapter of Pale, you know, like fucking Alabaster came out and like stabbed the Sable in the throat because she wanted to be the lord of the whatever the fuck. And obviously...
that'd be a twist.
You heard it here first.
Alabaster, yeah, stabbing somebody. Yeah, that's not who I would expect.
Yeah.
That's a bold and specific prediction. Speaking of which, let's smooth transition time. It's almost as smooth as that sentence was. We're going to go to Malia's bold and specific prediction. Woo!
So my bold and specific prediction is that Blake is going to use the lawyers to get out of this situation with the Lord of Toronto, which means he's going to have to go on that errand and do the thing. I feel like we might get a little bit more of like, oh fuck, the Lord of Toronto has me captive. But I do think that is how he's going to get out of this particular mess. And I think that he will at some point get back to his apartment. He will at some point get that book because he has to read it. Because debt or whatever. And so I think we're going to see some of what is in the Black Lamb's blood book as an interlude in this story.
Okay.
Which will be fun.
So coming up like in the next couple chapters that we haven't read yet, do you think he's going to try to call like the lawyers quick, or like do you think there's going to be some weird conquesting bullshit going on, or like
I think we'll do a bit of like conquesting shit. I think that Blake is very much trying to resist the lawyers, and I think that we're gonna I want to see Blake and Rose physically interact. You know, I want to see Rose react to this situation.
Yeah.
And so I think we're going to spend a little bit of time doing that, figuring out specifically what the Lord of Toronto wants, seeing, does he give him Ornias' name, stuff like that.
All right. Heard it here first, folks.
Or you didn't, because you already read the story.
Or you didn't. But you heard the prediction here, at least, so. All right, we're going to go on to last week's discussion question, which was, which god would you choose to base your practice off of if you had to choose one? So we'll start with Bisexual Bunch Party. They choose Santa Muerte, which is basically a death deity. They say specifically Santa Muerte focuses on healing and protection from harm, also secures a safe delivery to the afterlife, which is pretty nice things for a practitioner. They're also saying that there's good potential implements that can match up. Her tools include the lamp, hourglass, and scales. And she is also associated with owls, which could be a good familiar if you find another that is kind of owl-esque.
It's a pretty cool one. Megafire 7 says that they probably wouldn't base their practice off of a god. But if they had to choose, they would probably pick, okay, I'm going to butcher this, Elua from Kushiel's Avatar. Elua is the god of kindness and free love, but also very terrifying to oppose and will absolutely destroy you and your city. So that's a fun kind of duality there, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I don't really know anything about, I don't think Kushiel's Avatar, but
never heard of it.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Next, Bavarian Barbarian. They were saying they would pick probably a god with few followers in order to have better bargaining. Specifically, they would choose the Flying Spaghetti Monster. It is very well known. Probably very few people who actually believe in it. That's true. They're saying most effects, like magical effects, should skew towards anti-magical due to it being created to show the absurdity of religious exemptions from laws. And they were saying they also could get away with saying ridiculous stuff that normal practitioners would get like a big hit for karma-wise, just because most innocents would take it as a typical Pastafarian sarcasm type of thing. So they could just be spouting all sorts of stuff and everyone would be like, oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, Napalm Eagle talks about more stuff I haven't heard of, but sounds pretty cool. They say that going off of Cultist Simulator, they'd pick Door in the Eye, but that the Abstract Force Lantern is good, because it represents merciless knowing, which is a badass concept.
Mm-hmm. So those of you who play Cultist Simulator are going to really appreciate this one. I actually own that, but I haven't played it much, so I don't remember that much about Door in the Eye or Lantern, but I might have to play that game later again. Last but not least, we have Belegtal. They start by saying that per J.R.R. Tolkien, an author of fantasy is a sub-creator. Just as God created and continues to create the universe, an author creates and sustains their own universe. So, they choose Wildbow.
That's like so cute. I want to cry.
Yeah, I kind of love that.
So we love you, Wildbow.
Yeah. I don't know if you've been compared to a god before Wildbow, but I mean, this is probably you probably have, actually.
You probably have.
Everyone, yeah. But yeah, so if you, Wildbow, want to let us know what I guess your typical tools and things would be, what do you think?
What powers would you bestow upon your priests or
your
whatever?
Chosen? Yes, that would be very interesting. Belegtal, cool. The priest of Wildbow
Love
religion thing. I'm great with words, but All right. Well, that's the end of that. So thanks, everyone. Woo. All right. So moving on to our discussion question. I kind of paraphrase this from what we said earlier because I do like it. It's a question. But basically, name one specific thing that brings you comfort that would really creep you out if someone were to give it to you or to guess that that's what you needed. Because it's really fucking specific.
I love this question.
Yeah, I do too. Hopefully you guys like it. Sometimes I really feel like we came up with like super awesome ones. They get like not as many answers as I would have thought. And then that one with like the domain, hilariously, we literally thought of that like maybe like 20, 30 seconds before actually like talking about it. And then that's definitely our most answered one. So, I mean, obviously, like, you know, we're not able to predict what's a good discussion question for y'all. But hopefully y'all like that because I'm kind of interested to hear what you'll have to say. Anyway.
Yeah. And regardless of how many of you answer it, we really do appreciate.
Yeah, no, like it's really cool reading reading the answers and being like people are out listening to us. And yay. So yeah, we do appreciate it. All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe, share it with your friends, and leave a rating and review. To support our podcast, go to patreon.com/doofmedia. If you'd like to support Wildbow as he continues to write fantastic stories, go to patreon.com/wildbow.
You can follow the pod on Twitter at Pale Comparison, or send us an email at paleincomparisonpod@gmail.com. Keep an eye out for our Reddit thread in r/parahumans, where you can answer our discussion question and share your thoughts on this episode. In addition, if you'd like to see all of my predictions laid out, check out our episode description for a link to a prediction tracker. And don't forget, Pale Conflections submissions are due this Friday, July 30th, if we've gotten this episode out when I expect us to. So,
yay!
Yay!
That would be hilarious if we got this out like a week late and people are like, like, wow, they don't really have their shit together, do they? Real quick, also, kind of randomly, but you guys should listen or make sure that you check out doofmedia.com just to look at all of our awesome podcasts and everything that we have. I was recently listening to Doofcast, one of the slightly older episodes. Let me see here. I think it was right when Scott went on maternity leave, but they were talking about Justice League, the Zack Snyder cut.
I just listened to that one recently too.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Guys, we didn't even plan this. I'm not even gonna lie. So, whoops. Sorry. So specifically, it's Matt and Daniel that were talking about it because Scott took a break to hang out with his newborn baby. Malia, have you actually seen that? Like the Snyder Cut?
I have not seen it.
Have you seen the original Justice League?
I have not seen it.
Okay, I haven't seen the original one either, partially because I heard that it was terrible, and it just like I was like, I don't want this to kill my soul. But I heard that the Snyder Cut was fucking awesome, and I saw like a couple random like clips from it that just looked really, really cool, and I watched it, and it is 4 hours, but it's really, really damn good. Highly recommend watching that, and their commentary on this film is lovely as well. So I highly recommend you guys give that a listen. It's it felt like, I don't know. It's kind of hard for me to comment, I guess, on the original one because I didn't watch it. But from what I heard, like they just like added a lot of kind of cruddy lines and things like to try to make it jokey or funny, which wasn't really like the tone that was being set up when they filmed it. And like the Flash, he already is funny anyway, guys. Like he already like they already give him funny lines and shit. Like he's a funny dude. And they actually like made him matter and do some really awesome stuff in the Zack Snyder cut, whereas in Justice League, from what I'd heard, he seemed to be more of like, I don't know, just kind of like a gag character. It was like, but like he actually like legit like saved the day for those guys.
Hey.
So pretty cool. And I felt like the actor did a good job. Anyway, feel free to listen to that episode. And their other episodes. That one I just listened to and it was very good.
Yeah, as an additional plug, their sibling dynamic was really fun. I hadn't listened to an episode with Matt and Daniel, and now I definitely plan to go check out the Freeman Bros, which is one of the podcasts you can listen to if you are one of our patrons, and to hear more about just what they have to say. They have a really fun dynamic. Daniel was like very excited and upbeat about the Snyder Cut, and I just like want to hear more about things they find interesting.
I feel like Daniel's voice sounds really familiar too, and I can't figure out why, because I've never heard him talk before. Did it sound familiar? Does his voice sound familiar to you at all? Because I'm trying to think of like why. I don't know if it's just some person I know in real life, or like someone's voice from a movie, or like just something about it sounds really fucking familiar. It's been bothering me.
It didn't strike me as familiar, but I'll update you when I listen to more.
All right.
Bros.
If anyone knows like who he sounds like, just in any kind of media or whatever, let me know. I'm gonna feel like an idiot when I like talk to a coworker or whatever and be like, "Oh, that's who he sounds like." No one's gonna know that. But yeah, I don't know. Something about his voice sounds really fucking familiar to me. Anyway, we're on to this week's fun fact. So apparently, no one born blind, specifically blind due to like issues with your brain, not with your eyes, has ever developed schizophrenia, which is really random. But I guess that's, I don't know. I guess they found at least a correlation with that. Like people who have been born with blindness don't develop it.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. What is it? Specifically cortical blindness. So caused by abnormalities in the brain rather than damage to your eyes. So now you know. Have a good week, everybody.
Bye.